What's happening, guys, and welcome back to another Sunday Scan. I hope that everyone had a great week and weekend. The action has been nonstop in the market, and we have a lot to cover today. So I'm going to do a very brief intro section, and then we're going to get right into the main watches with Stan. We cover a ton of names, so I don't want to overwhelm people with going through too many tickers. So make sure that you stick around for the main watches. We talk about the quantum theme, we talk about robotics, and we talk about the upcoming CES 2025, which is the Consumer Electronics Show, which is held in Las Vegas. And it's really an area for people to come together from the tech world, talk about new ideas, new concepts. And for the markets, you tend to have a lot of news flow and a lot of new themes emerging and catalyst-based stock moves. So there's going to be a lot of action for the upcoming week. And then on the 9th, there's actually going to be a market closure in remembrance of Jimmy Carter, former president who recently passed away. So the market will be closed as a day of memorial for him. So I'm going to give the disclaimer now that neither Stan nor I are financial advisors, and these are not buy or sell recommendations. This is all for informational and educational purposes only. So let's bring on Stan, and we'll go over a bunch of charts and names to watch for the upcoming week. All right, we're happy to have Stan back on Sunday Scan. Stan, how you doing?
Pretty good, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for having me on again. I'm personally a little bit under the weather, but in terms we'd like to understand them more so on the backside of it. So getting better through through this little flu, but everything's good.
Good, great. Yeah, hopefully that you're on the up and up now. And I know that you had some really great market thoughts. There's a lot to chat about. We have the CES 2025 coming up, which is in Las Vegas, which I think that you'll be attending, and that should spark a ton of just momentum in even more momentum in the quantum names and robotics names. In so many different things. So you're planning on attending some of that. What are your thoughts on the CES?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty much in my backyard. I've been going to it every year since we started hosting it here in Las Vegas, and it's a great event. It's it's the biggest tech event of the year, and you get to see a lot of different industries. Automotive is in there as well. A little bit. You have obviously tech, the main component, but very, very cool experience, right? To go from booth to booth and etc. But in terms of the market action, I think it's something to look for, in names like Oracle, Microsoft, Nvidia, right? Something in the quantum space. I think January 9th, which is a Thursday of next week, is they've dedicated it a quantum day or something like that. So a lot of the quantum exhibits will be on that day, and I believe we have the market actually is closed that day in observance of the late president. So it's something, it's as far as market opportunities, it's something to keep in mind as we go into next week. We've seen overall the quantum names, they've just been chopping around over the last several sessions. And, we had end of the year last week, roll into the new year. So a lot of that, I think, has to be accounted for in your trading, and as far as sizing and the range that you can expect. But during the intraday price action, we've seen some really good opportunities. The one thing that's been more so important for me is to take each segment as it develops. If I try and stick around for the whole picture or bigger picture or the whole day, I end up severely underperforming or flat or red. And it's something that has been a change of character for me over the past several weeks or so, just to be, lock in the opportunities, be on the bid, be on the offer ahead of time of where the liquidity areas are. And then we've also seen some 1-2 day wonder type of charts. MLGO last week was one of them, also HOLO. But essentially, if you're not part of that quantum space, or right now we're seeing the robotic space more so emerging, if you're not part of that, you lose steam quicker. As we saw with HOLO and MLGO, it's been steady pressure since those 1-2 days. Yeah, that's as far as a couple of thoughts on my side.
Yeah, I think that that's a good differentiator between themes and trades that are in sectors versus ones that are more standalone. And we've talked about that before, and Nate has talked about it, how when you have sector trades, you have basically money looking for things to pile into. So you might have $500 million just kind of sloshing around looking for, if the theme is robotics, okay, which is the next robotics name that's going to run, and they'll kind of put that money towards that. Or what's the next quantum name that's moving? They put the money towards that. So you have this pile of money looking for something that fits a theme, and it's just piling into one after the other, and that's like a sector move. And then you compare that with like a company who's on its own that's trying to drum up money to flow into it. So they're putting out press releases, or they're trying to generate volume, or they're trying to do something to basically get the attention of that pile of money. But it's a lot easier for that pile of money to go to a familiar theme. So robotics, quantum, AI, batteries, the eVTOL, or whatever it is. So, and I feel like especially during hot retail focused markets where you have money sloshing around, there's been a lot of big gainers. A lot of people have some good trading profits that they're just bouncing from one name or one sector to the next. So with sector trades, I always try to think about what are the common denominators, or what are the commonalities? Is it they're all in the same sector? Are they all in the same price range, or the same market cap range? Are they all kind of dead charts that are just starting to come back to life? Are they names that are already in motion that are basically going along a trend? So there's just a ton of different ways to approach these sectors, but it's just a hugely important thing to know when something is part of a sector versus when it's a standalone, and the action is very different. And that's often what's the difference between something that lasts for weeks or months versus something that runs for 2 days and then just kind of putters out how we normally see it.
Right. Yeah. And it's something that it is included in the trade thesis, in the overall risk exposure, and targets as far as what's your expectation. A lot of times when something just out of nowhere on a basic PR goes parabolic, and you have that symmetry, then immediately it gets met with some seller at some level, and then the symmetry comes into play where it comes right back down. If there's no fundamentals behind it, or a theme or a volume or flow that supports it.
Yeah, definitely. And then another thing that we were talking about beforehand is, kind of on the same topic of, nailing your setup and then moving on or waiting for the next thing. Unless you're swing trading, which, people can do very well swing trading in this kind of market, but that's its own type of setup versus someone who's more focused on intraday action, looking for either a failed follow through to really, capture, or for, to buy a dip, or to, look for a parabolic to either participate in on the long side, or wait for it to basically, exhaust out and then participate on the short side. But just really getting specific about your setup, because when you have moves like the quantum moves, or something that's running for weeks on end, you don't want to have one bias and then just hold that through all the other setups that are happening. So for instance, if someone is more short bias on the quantum names, and you can do very well on that, waiting for those exhaustions, the failed follow through, and then looking for that. But if you're expecting to hold it bell to bell, basically, for an all day fader, but the sector's not doing that, that's the wrong strategy to use. So just focusing on what setup is present, and then what are you good at? What do you have a good risk to reward ratio? And then just locking that in, and then looking for the next setup, because there's so many setups, so many stocks moving, instead of trying to nail everything with, one blanket style. Just, if you're more specific about something, you have a lot of opportunity to just, nail that one and then move on to the next one. And that's what you were mentioning before, right, Stan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the way I have felt in this market as of recently is, I'm just sitting on the edge, and my hook line has my different type of setups that I know I can execute at any moment, at any time, very comfortable with. And I just wait for whatever fits into those little patterns, because the flow is there, the liquidity is there, the volume is there. We're going from one theme to another, as we're seeing the emergence of the robotics, and it's just there are different price ranges. We've seen, tickers like CGBS. I think it was sub $1, then it went to $3 or so. But there's opportunity in every aspect, in market cap, in float, in price range. So for me right now, the environment is the type where I must capitalize and perform on what I'm best at while the environment is here. And then later on, I can go back to focusing on fine tuning and honing my skills as far as making adjustments or whatever needs to happen. But when the opportunities are here, it's time to perform.
Yeah, definitely. And so I'm going to pull up a chart now. We can go through a bunch of names that we have on watch. And one of the kind of themes, especially that I'm going to focus on as I go through the main watches, is helping people to build baskets of these names. And so instead of just trying to trade a quantum name or a robotics name like it's an individual, if you have that basket of stocks on your screen, or at least something you can glance at, if all the quantum names are up 7, 10, 15, 30%, and you're trying to fight something short the entire day as they all grind higher, that you're doing yourself a disservice as opposed to looking at the context. The same thing with the robotics. If you're trying to long a robotics name, but all of them are correcting that day, you don't want to be fighting that trend necessarily. So just having those themes, quantum, robotics, whatever it is, and having your 5 or 10 stocks that basically can help to summarize what's happening in that sector, that's hugely helpful, whether someone's intraday or swing trading or whatever they're doing. So that's something that I will especially focus on when it comes to my turn. But Stan, I will throw up your screen now, and we can go through some names.
Yeah, sure. I have RGTI up here, but I guess before we get into the actual scan for next week, as far as the quantum basket, right? So I have RGTI up on the chart, but we can put QUBT, QBTS, etc. So that Q basket, as far as what I'm watching next week, is we have the forward-looking catalyst, CES January 9th as well. And in general, we've just been chopping around, this higher time frame. So around 16s to 20s, like this $4 range is where we've been chopping around over the last several sessions. And with CES next week, with quantum, along with the robotics themes emerging, it's to me, it feels like it's creating this environment where we may see a shift in the existing supply-demand equation. And I don't necessarily mean from a bearish point of view, but more so if there were a definitive break out of this steady chop and grind, or if there's some sort of an exchange, some sort of a tape shift from the relentless bidding that it's been, next week would be a suitable environment for that to happen. And when I say a definitive, you can kind of see how definitive this daily candle is here, breaking out of this whatever $10-12 chop, and it's just a definitive move higher. Whereas we've just been barely inching, day by day. So for me, next week, that's what I want to keep in mind as far as the quantum basket. If there was something to happen, or if we're going to break out higher definitively, or maybe do some sort of an exchange, it's just a good environment for it to happen. So I will have that on the back of my mind as I formulate my trades expectations for next week. So back to RGTI. For me, ideally, higher the better. Obviously, like I said, with CES, with that catalyst looking next week, we'll still continue to see the volume and just monitor the price action. But for me, I'm interested in big moves only, in clear outs, in any speed ups, any parabolics. That is what I'm looking to trade. If we get some sort of a fast wash out of the gate on Monday, down to the 16, 17s area, that might be something of interest. But overall, I'm really just monitoring how this next week will develop, and I want to make sure that if the triggers are there, I'm able to react fast. That way, I'm able to capture the best EV possible. So RGTI, higher to better, QUBT. This one to me feels like the weaker, the weakest out of the bunch. It's had a pretty aggressive move that we saw, from 6.7s all the way up to 20, 26, 27s or whatever. But then it's been just tightening up in this higher teen zone. So this to me is the relative weakness. So if there is a shift in the supply demand, then this might be the go-to name for me out of the batch. And then of course we have QBTS, similar chart to me as RGTI. It's just that steady grind, right? So ideally some sort of a blow-off move, and then again just monitor the overall price action of the quantum space next week. But it's a good way to spread risk across several names. It's something that I like to do instead of concentrating on one particular name. And the next couple that I have on watch is this MBOT and BOT. Nice move there after hours on Friday. A couple moves actually. We had that initial blowout, and then a secondary clear out there after it ended up just stabilizing around this 260s. But it will be on watch next week. Again, MBOT, it's not just that one. I also have KITT as well as part of this little basket, and then SERV, SERV. And again, this is, we've traded SERV in the past, I think somewhere around this time frame. But again, we're coming up on some previous resistance with part of the robotics theme, and also next week's catalyst, etc. So I think it's just going to provide some good opportunities, whether on the short or long side. For me, it's it doesn't really matter, but I am more comfortable on the short side. So anything that any sort of exhaustion into this 2022, 24s, like I said, this is the previous area of interest that I will be looking at. And as far as MBOT and KIT, it's more so I'll need to see what the pre-market action looks like. I mean, I can make a million plans, but for me, again, if it's part of a theme, part of a larger move, then it's something to be more cautious on the front side. I like to see clear fail to follow through of some significant level or some sort of a trend break. The next one that I have on watch is CVNA. And CVNA, I think you and I, Chris, spoke about this briefly privately at some point, right around this 220s area. So nice little unwind, and I mean, you can kind of see the range speed up along with the volume speed up as well. So for me, I'm actually looking into more so a reversal day. Whenever that happens, sometime next week would be ideal. But looking at some of these levels, looking left over here versus low 170s, mid 160s or so. You also have the daily VWAP there as well. But for me, ideally some sort of a fast, aggressive flush out of the gate, and then look to get into a position only after a bottom's been put, right? Some sort of a higher low. This is not something that I want to step in front of, trying to catch a bottom, because CVNA to me, it's one of those, it's a company out there that I think when and if the market turns, this might not be something that, big money will necessarily try to support. So that's why I'm not going to be, again, stepping in front of this trying to buy any sort of a dip. More so just look for a proper structured setup that I can, have a good risk exposure on. So that's CVNA, and then the next one that I have is LAES. Again, I mean, you can kind of see these similar charts, that we're just seeing throughout, throughout the scan. I mean, RGTI, QBTS, and then LAES, right? Like not necessarily related, but as far as the chart structure, it looks pretty similar. So for me, just looking at some of these exhaustion levels here into the nines. So again, ideally, a retest of this nines and then a fail to follow through would be a potential play that I would be looking for, while keeping this higher time frame in mind of what the daily chart looks like, where the exhaustion levels are. And the last one that I have on watch is NITO. NITO, nice little mover there. I mean, this thing is up whatever over 700% in the past couple of days, which seems to be the norm. So higher to better versus this 260s 3 level would be something that I would like to focus on, and then fail to follow through setup from there. But that's pretty much it for me, Chris. Those were some of my watches that I have next week. And again, it's right now for me, we're in a market where a lot of the decisions, the planning, the trade management prep comes from pre-market after seeing what has happened, because there's a lot going on, a lot of things moving, a lot of things shifting overnight, and PRs flying left and right. To me, it's something that if I plan too much the day before, then I may create a bias that will be tough to get over. So that's always in the back of my mind as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And a big part of my style as well, it's like it's having, what are the main names that are in play? What has good range, good volume? What has something that you can make key levels off of? And then as the action plays out, that's when you can really start to make a plan, that morning or as it really happens. Some things you can plan out a little bit longer on a longer time frame, but you need that, general thesis, and then to be able to, fill in those details with what is the action happening that day. So for instance, like you brought up CVNA, and that's been a great one that you reached out to me and put that on my radar of, this is starting to, roll over. And then we had the thesis with, the end of the year rotation, then it had the short report. So you had a lot of like confluence of things of like, this is a good, a great chart to really unwind. And then you can start to plan, okay, as this water falls down, if I were looking for a bounce trade on this at some point, what would I want to see? I'd want to see, that volume increase. I'd want to see it speeding up from previous action. I want to see some kind of, level looking left for support. And then I'd want to see basically once I have that in place and I can, plan for that, then that day I want to see it, flush hard and then start to basically struggle to go any lower, create a higher high. I want it to be short crowded. I want it to be, all these things that kind of like fill in the thesis. And then you can start to, plan your trade for like a bounce or something like that. So that's really, the process of finding a great trade. It's you have something on your radar, you have something that you're looking for, and then you fill in those details and everything. So those are great points. And I'm the exact same way, Stan. I'm looking at things that are moving, and then as the action plays out, that's when I really, put together my thesis.
No, that's very good. I mean, like I said, that CVNA thought process there. It's recognizing the signs, and the earlier you're able to recognize them, the better trade expectancy you might have overall. And for me, just like you said, I almost have to wait for something super negative when it's a dead bottom, right? That's usually you get that last final PR that's whatever, and that puts in the bottom.
Yeah, when positioning flips from max bullishness to basically max bearishness, and that's when you can get a lot of good bounces. So great thoughts there. I will pull up my chart now, and like I said earlier, I'm going to run through just a bunch of names in sectors that are in play. And then I'll talk about maybe a few ways that you could possibly trade these, but I don't want to lock too much into, waiting for one type of setup, because these could be great longs. They could be great shorts at some point. Some of these names have options on them. They could be options plays. So I more just want to talk about what are the themes, what is the catalyst, why are they moving, and then what are a couple names that you can have in those baskets, and then whatever your style is, whether you like things that are kind of building on the long side, looking for dips, looking for maybe VWAP, looking for a key level or for low of day, some area where if you have a long bias and it's in motion, what is the best area you could participate in that long bias on? So instead of just chasing the breakouts or doing things that have worse reward to risk ratios, what would be the best place to participate on the long side? And then once you flip your bias, or if you're like, someone has more of a short bias, what would be the best areas to really participate in that? It's waiting for a blow off top, waiting for a key level to form, waiting for something to looking left. So the first name that I really have on watch for this is QS. So there was some news that the Biden administration was trying to relax some different like battery construction, policies. And so a lot of names that are involved with EVs, with batteries, they're all starting to perk up on that news. So QS is one of those names. And then a few other that really fit that theme is PLUG. Again, kind of similar battery related, coming off of like a long base here. And so if you have a fresh catalyst, if you have other names that are moving within that theme, these are good to just have on watch. So if you have a long bias, you can see, is the whole sector moving up? Does this have follow through? And then if you're waiting for a more short bias, are these names kind of exhausting out into a key level, or once they get up to a key level looking left, could then you flip your bias? So QS, PLUG, FCEL, the exact same thing. All these companies that are involved with a sector that has a catalyst. So these are all like the battery types of names. And then Tesla, this will be on watch. And this actually checks a lot of the boxes from a lot of the different themes. It has robotics, it has EV stuff, it has batteries, it has tech, it has AI, all these different things. So Tesla had a very nice, very sharp unwind from, we were looking at this, the parabolic, kind of the big fail follow through, the options unwind, and then into the end of the year, definitely some profit taking. And now it seems to have stabilized after they posted their delivery and production numbers, which were, they were below expectations, which helped it to flush down to some of these key areas. And now you're basically getting a bounce off of that. And so we'll see what happens if money is flowing into large tech again. This could be a leader, especially going with those recent themes. NVIDIA, some of the AI names. So Microsoft actually had a big, meaningful piece of news saying that they were planning on investing up to $80 billion in data centers and AI infrastructure in 2025. And so if you look at where does NVIDIA get a lot of its money from, it's from a few key customers like Microsoft, like Google, Meta, some of these other things that are, if they're spending tens of billions of dollars and NVIDIA has 80% of that market share, you can basically just do rough math. So if you can assume, 150 billion or 200 billion worth of, spending from these big players is going to the AI space, and NVIDIA gets 80% of that, you can kind of use that to estimate that NVIDIA will continue to have good growth, and that will be sustainable into the upcoming year. So that was a catalyst showing that these big companies still have CapEx that they can put towards things like NVIDIA and some of those AI names. So NVIDIA will be on watch on the long side. And then a few of the other kind of AI, infrastructure, semiconductor names are MRVL. Again, a nice chart setting up on the long side and a fresh catalyst from the Microsoft investment. TSM, this is, they had good earnings on their own. You always have some of the Taiwan risk from some of the Chinese, spillover or the Chinese conflict talks there. But TSM chart is shaping up nicely, and it's in that same kind of theme where the more spending, the more CapEx deployed by the large FANG names, the more that these can really run. And then ARM, same thing. You had a big kind of bounce off of one of these areas down here, and we'll see if that continues, with the AI theme, especially new money flows into 2025. It's nice to see that after some consolidation, after some flushes, some money is coming back into these AI names. And then QUBT, just like Stan said, quantum sectors, of course, on watch. IONQ, RGTI have been more relative strength in that sector, and then QUBT has been absolute relative weakness. And so you're looking for, basically after this parabolic, now you have a channel forming, you now have some lower highs, And so what you're looking for is either for the sector to start to turn down, or for this to have a negative catalyst. And this will probably at some point, have a big unwind, but you just don't know if you need the entire sector to turn before that, or if it can kind of do it on its own. So that would be on watch for puts for me. And then getting into the robotics theme, IRBT, just like the small modular reactor names, like the nuclear names, where you had SMR, OKLO, you have these sectors, and then you have the ideal vehicles for hedge funds and pieces to, or other funds and places to play that theme. So the big names like IRBT, SERV, and a few others, those are going to be like the equivalents of the SMRs and OKLOs, or the the IONQs, the RGTIs in other sectors. And so I always like to have these on watch as like the leaders of the basket, and then you kind of work your way down to MYO and all these other names, AUR, OUST, that are related to that, GFAI, the small cap robotics name. So you have so many of these names that you don't necessarily have to have a plan for each one, but you can have the basket on your screen, and that can just give you such a better read on the entire sector rather than just looking at one thing in a vacuum. So these are just a few names that we'll have written out in the Sunday Scan portion of this. So if you want to add them to a watch list or anything, but they're definitely worthwhile at least paying attention to, or having on some kind of a watch list, even if you don't trade each individual one. It's just good to have a read on that sector. So those are pretty much the names that I wanted to cover. And Stan, you had some great thoughts on the robotics. I'm very excited to see how the Consumer Electronics Show, the CES 2025, is going to play out. And usually you have presenters, you have headlines, a lot of breaking news trades on those, or during those conference times. So that will be on watch for the upcoming week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably not going to attend all the days, and it's going to be in the afternoon, which works out well given the time zone. But there should be some really, really good opportunities, and in terms of the market out there, and as far as the technology that we'll see there, that's always exciting, right? Just in general, just to see the growth in general, right? Regardless of market attachment or not. But some great thoughts around the robotics names there, Chris, and I think what we're seeing from the market, at least the way it has been from my point of view, from November of last year, we've just been from one theme to the next, right? With crypto, then with quantum, now robotics, and then you have these little sub themes that develop within each other, and it's what provides for that array of opportunities that we've seen over the last couple of months, I believe. You just have this from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And our job is just to see what we can capture in there.
Yeah, and I know like on last Sunday Scan, we had comments of people wondering, how do you really spot some of these like themes or these names before they start to actually go parabolic? And that's something that Nate and Judah are really good at, and several other people as well in the room. But you're basically looking for something that fits one of those commonalities. So if you're looking for a newer name in like the robotic space, you basically try to get a list of as many as you can find, and then you look for things that are just in an earlier part of that cycle. So it might be something that just put out a press release, or it might be something that just had an outlier volume day. Maybe it's been trading 500,000 shares for the last 6 months, and now it has a 3 million share day, and then it goes up to 10 million, then 20 million, it eventually has an 80 million share day, and it blows out. So you're just looking for what are the commonalities. You have the theme, and then you have which names are in which part of the life cycle. If the life cycle is volume comes in, the chart starts to build, and then a lot of them go up 200-300%, you're looking for things that are basically in an earlier stage of that process. And then as they play out, you're looking for other names to see, how does this template actually play out? They go up 300%, and then they kind of putter out, and then something moves to something else. So whether you're looking for the names that are like perking and grinding on the long side, or for those big blowouts, and then looking for things on the short side, there's so many opportunities, but just define what you're good at and what you like. So do you want to be long or short bias? Do you want to focus on large caps or small caps? Do you want to focus on options? Do you want to focus on mean reversion or for trending? And then just looking at the ideal places along those charts of where you would want to participate, and then just reverse engineer. If that really helps.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, great. I think we covered a lot of good material this time. Stan, thank you as always for joining me on here. And then you and I will be trading together in Investors Underground for the upcoming week. And then a quick reminder, like Stan mentioned before, that on the 9th, the market will be closed for the Jimmy Carter kind of Memorial Day. So whenever a former president passes away, you usually have the market closed for 1 day in observance of that. So that's what we'll be experiencing on Thursday. So Stan, thank you, and I will see you in the room.
Thank you, Chris. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you want to trade live alongside me and other members of the Investors Underground community, then check out investorsunderground.com to see if becoming a member is the right decision for you. They have some of the best technology and a lot of great members there, all looking to help other people improve their trading. And also check out Investors Underground content on YouTube and Twitter. Thank you.